So good afternoon, ladies. I think we have only one lady. So maybe the best way to put it is gentlemen and lady. So you are welcome. Today let me just share the screen. Um, Sorry, trying to tidy a few things. So you are welcome, and this is our second lecture on CLN 751, Quantitative Methods in Linguistics. I'm sure if you recall, in the first lecture, we talked about the quantitative methods being data-driven, dealing with data and particularly linguistic data. And we try to itemize what constitutes linguistic data. Their sources, their types, and the kind of analysis that you can do with the different linguistic data types. So this lecture is one step forward, but this time around our focus will be on sampling and data collection. Sampling is a popular word. It's something we do almost on a daily basis. Most of us, we have sampled. If I ask the females here, you want to buy gari in the market, and you want to know whether the gari is of a particular quality that you want, you have to sample. You take few, and then you crunch it, and that tells you whether the entire basket or the entire bowl, the content is the type that you want. You prepare soup. While you are preparing in the kitchen, you put a little in your hand, and then you taste. And that tells you whether the entire soup is delicious or not before you serve the rest of the family. So sampling is what we do from time to time. You go to maybe clinic and you are asked to do medical test, and the doctor says, okay, they take your blood and test the blood and then conclude based on the small sample they have taken. They tell you there is malaria in your entire blood. They don't have to drain the entire blood before arriving at the conclusion, but by just taking a small portion of your blood, then they are able to carry out the test and generalize about the entire blood system. So sampling is daily stuff. We do it from time to time. So we will discuss the principles of sampling and then see how we conduct experiments or surveys in linguistics with the help of sampling. And we will also consider some ethical issues regarding data collection. So this is the coverage of our lecture. If you have any question, I think most people have joined now. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. If you don't ask questions, there is no way you will be able to know where more clarifications are needed. So I've said that sampling is what we do from time to time, consciously and unconsciously. But in linguistic research, how important is sampling? Is it really important? And do we really need to bother about sampling? Yes, because one, it is not possible for us to consider the entire population. And when we talk about the population, those are the group of items, individuals with common characteristics. This class can be considered as a population, and the population is defined by CLN 751. That's what is common to all of us in this class. So we have Edidiong, Udo, we have Honey, Peter, we have, I think I've seen few other names, difficult to, yes. I've seen Favor, Adedeji, Ganiyat, so on. So what makes us a population is that that thing that is common to all of us. So you define or you define a population based on feature that is common to them. You can talk about the population of Yoruba uh, speaking group. So that population is identified. Anybody speaking Yoruba is identified as a member of that population. You can also talk about population of Egbira or Hausa. So the language identifies the members of that population. So if we take, for instance, Yoruba speaking tribes, then you need to study this group, Yorubas. The question is, are you able to reach all the Yorubas? No, so that your study will be dealing with the entire population. In most cases, it is practically it is difficult, if not practically impossible, for you to reach the entire population. Is it possible, Ganiat? Ganiat is not in the class.
No, sir.
Why is it not possible? If you are carrying out linguistic research about the Yorubas, why is it difficult to reach cassava? Is cassava here? Favor. People turn on the.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, you are not speaking. Yeah. Can you answer my question? Emmanuel.
Having issue with the network. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, you can respond now.
It's not easy to reach the entire population.
Why?
Because we cannot. The speakers of every language are spread across um, geographical locations, so it's not easy to reach everybody. But we can only pick from.
So that's the point we are making, that there are instances, there are situations where reaching out to the entire population is practically impossible. And you can think of any other population like that, you know. So in that situation, sampling is what can rescue us. So we need to now draw a sample. So, but our sample, the challenge with that is that we can introduce bias into the way we draw the sample. So if you introduce bias, then it is difficult to generalize your study. Can somebody tell me how I can introduce bias into my sample if I'm dealing with this Yoruba speaking group or tribe? How can I introduce bias? Edith Young, yes, go ahead. Ganiat, go ahead.
Yes, sir. By actually selecting certain people, let's say you select speakers of a particular dialect, speakers of that particular dialect that you know, and not reaching to different other people of another dialect.
Yeah, that's one way. Yes, that's good. Is there any other way? Suppose I'm a Christian and I decide to use to uh, take my sample from my church members. Will that introduce bias or not?
It should have
Yes,
introduced by
It will, okay.
It introduce
So
bias, sir.
it will. So there are several ways by which bias can come in. So we will see how. And therefore, before we can generalize, if for instance, I decide to use people around me because they are also Yorubas, and I do my analysis based on them, then I will say my sampling procedure is not proper. So you need a proper sampling process to ensure that the results are generalizable. And even if you use appropriate sampling method, uh, it can, the way you conduct the sample, you can still introduce bias, which can, lead to misleading conclusions. So sampling is used in most linguistic studies, such as when you are analyzing phonetic variations. Can somebody explain that? Uh, how do we analyze phonetic variation? Deborah, or what do we mean when we say we are analyzing phonetic variation? Deborah, Ganiyat, if Deborah is not, yeah. Those who want to, yes, continue,
okay,
Ganiyat.
sir. Yes, sir. For example, in the standard Yoruba, so some people use she, for example, she ofejo. For Ibadan dialect, they use si, so they say se ofejo. Then
Yes,
some other dialects like that also, instead of using yi like as in back, they use
yeah.
they use h for the
Uh-huh,
same word.
uh-huh. So we can study how Ogbomoso people will pronounce S, uh, how Ekiti people will pronounce, certain uh, uh, vowels and things like that. So we can study phonetic variation among people of the same uh, lingua franca, so to say. Then you have uh, in dialect studies, you can also employ uh, sampling technique. Um, in dialect studies, what are some of the uh, issues that may be of interest? Uh, Anybody can unmute. If it's only Ghanaian that is talking to me, I think that's okay. Yes. What are the issues around dialect studies that may warrant use of sampling technique? Is anyone? So if not, you could just search for that. If the class is not contributing, I'm not going to ask you questions again because I want to save time. I'll just continue. So we can also use psycholinguistics experiments, but the good thing is that if you want our sample not to be biased, in statistics, there are techniques that have been tested and found to be, we say they give every member of the population equal chance of being selected. Any technique that is not treating a member of the population in a special way is called probability sampling method, or simply put, we say they are random. They are they are random sampling techniques. So here we are going to talk about three methods, but there are more than three. But for purpose of this discussion and for the demonstration that we will do later, we will focus on three. Well, I can tell you the other ones that are not listed here. As I said earlier, the techniques are grouped into two: the probability, sampling methods, and the non-probability sampling method, or the random sampling method and the non-random sampling methods. The first group, the random sampling methods, you have that random sampling, which we also expand to be simple random sampling. So it's usually I need to do some writing. So we also talk about simple random sampling, SRS, or simply put, simple random sampling. So this is a probability sampling method, but it's often shortened as random sampling. So this is one technique which ensures that every individual in the population is given equal chance of being selected. Right now, I don't know how many we are in this class. Let's say we are 11, 12, or let's even say 10. So we have 10. So simple random sampling ensures that it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter your background, as long as you are a member of the population, then you can be selected. So that's and this is usually done when you use lottery method. Maybe I ask everybody, okay, write your name in a sheet of paper, then squeeze the paper, put it in a basket, and then the person who will select, maybe we want to select 3 out of 10. Then there will be 10 papers that are squeezed together in the basket, and then 3 will then be selected. That process ensures that everybody is given equal chance. You can even use your phone to do the selection. You can generate a random number from 1, 2, 3, maybe to 10. And then make sure you have listed the members of the class, Udo number 1, Adedeji number 2, Favor up to the 10th person. And then you ask your phone or use any device, even your computer, to randomly generate 3 numbers between 1 and 10. And that number that are generated, let's say 4 is generated, followed by 1, followed by 8. Then it means these are the people that will be selected. So the bottom line is that in random sampling, every member of the population is given equal chance. Nobody is discriminated. And discrimination can happen. People know how to discriminate. If I want to discriminate, since I want 3 out of 10, I can choose Ghanaian and say, Ghanaian, stay aside. And then ask the remaining 9, and then use them and select 2 from the remaining 9. No. I might also say, oh, I want only females. So when you do things like that, you are denying other members. You are not giving them equal chance. Now, another type of sampling technique. So I'm not going to ask you questions again. I will only expect you to ask questions if you don't understand anything. In the stratified sampling, the population is divided into groups. For instance, in our class, I said, let's say we are 10. And the class, we know we have groups based on gender. So we have the female group and we have the male group. So maybe we have the 4 female and we have 6 male. Now, if you use this random sampling, you may discover that you have selected more male. In fact, all of them can be, the 3 you are selecting may just come from the male folk. And random sampling can also lead to you selecting all your sample from the female folk. So in Stratify, you have to look at the population. If the population is homogeneous, I'm sure you know what we mean by homogeneous. They have the same feature, the same demographic feature. Then apply simple random sampling. But if they are heterogeneous, then it is better to apply the stratified. So, which means the first thing to do is to group them based on their distinct features. It could be by age. The older people, they are separated from the younger people. It could also be by dialect. So if we want to ensure equal representation in this class, we could group by gender. We could also group by, our language or dialect. I know in this class there are different dialects, people speaking different dialects. So, and then we will now select from each group. That's stratified sampling. The third one, which does not even require any serious effort, is to just use convenient sampling. So you don't even have to, since you want 3, you can just mention the 3 you want. I can say Deborah, Ghanaian, Favor, you have been selected for scholarship. So that's the most convenient sampling. They can be chosen based on ability, participation, accessibility. So if you choose only your church member or mosque member or your community members, that's because they are accessible to you. That kind of sampling is based on availability and accessibility. So we call them convenience sampling. But when you use this, you cannot generalize. So it's a non-probability sampling technique. It doesn't ensure equal chance. So, but let's again look at each of them very briefly. The random sampling, which I've explained, by definition, it gives every member of the population equal chance of selection. So no one is denied for any reason. So everyone is considered eligible, but not everybody will be selected. But everybody will participate. So the real thing, you have example here, if you select speakers at random from a national speech corpus, I have example here, which I'm going to demonstrate. Let's suppose that we have a group of speakers, let's say 100 speakers, and we want to select from them. So I'm going to simulate the data using the script, the codes here. So we can see the data. We can see the data. So this is the data. So we have, this is the speaker ID. This is the gender of the speaker. This is the dialect of the speaker. This is the vowel duration of the speaker. So let's say this is the population of the speakers. that we have. There are hundreds of them. So, but and that is the population we are talking about. Let's say now that I'm not even interested. I'm only interested in, say, just 20 of them for my analysis. So I can use simple random sampling to select the 20 speakers that I want to use for my linguistic research. So line 28 will help me to draw the sample. And you can use sample function in R. So you state this is the data frame from which you want to draw the sample. And it's going to draw from the cases. So it's drawing from the cases. The rows are the cases. So it's going to draw how many? 20 rows. You need to learn about the code. So if I run this, then it will, okay, it has that command has been executed. But we can now see the 20 that are selected. So these are the 20 selected. Number 9 is selected randomly. Number 61 is selected. Number 39 is selected. Number 94 is selected. And their demographic or their dialect details, and they are including their gender, their dialect, their vowel duration. So this is how to implement the random sample. We will also, but let's look at the performance of this. Let's suppose we tabulate this, whether we have equal number of people with this, whether the dialects are fairly represented. Let's look at this. In this random sample, in this sample, those whose dialect is East are 5. Those whose dialect is North are 3. South 8, West 4. Out of the 20. So you can see simple random sampling does not take into consideration the group, though is able to give every member equal chance, but is treating some group more favorably, is giving some sort of preference to some group. So if we want to take into consideration the group, then we might need to use the stratified sampling so that the groups, the dialect groups are fairly represented too, not just that individuals are given equal chance, but the constituent parts, the groups, the components, the distinct components are also fairly treated. So that takes us to, the stratified sampling, which I will still talk about in a moment. But you've seen that we could apply this random sampling technique when we are selecting speakers at random from a national speech corpus. That has been demonstrated. But what are the advantages of random sampling? One, it reduces bias. If not eliminating it completely. And again, it's best if you have to generalize the population. So having employed simple random sampling here that can generalize about this 100. In other words, from this 20, whatever result I get, I can generalize it for the entire population of 100. That's a very important reason for generalizing results. But it's common for people to just sit down under the tree, just use any convenience, those who are available or those who volunteer, get data from them, and then begin to use that, the findings to generalize it for the entire population. It is wrong. The only basis for you to generalize if the selection process is done, in a random manner. But there are challenges with the adoption of random sampling. You need what we call sampling frame. Don't forget this. Sampling frame is simply the list of the members of the population. Any list or register containing the population is called the sampling frame. So any register containing the students, containing the list of students in this class is a sampling frame. Any list, if you go to school, you have a register which contains list of students. That is a sampling frame. If I'm to select any student from the University of Ibadan, matric number identifies you uniquely, and you can know the number of students that have passed through this university by the matric number. So if you get the register where or call it the matriculation register, that will show you how many the students that have passed through this university. And from that register, you can draw your sample. So random sampling requires that you have that list. And that list must be complete. In other words, no member of the population must be missing. on that list. That list also must be up to date, which means that list should reflect the current, so every time the list must be updated, not that is stale or old, to the extent that some are already not yet listed in the list. So sampling frame is simply the list, and you need that list for you to carry out random sampling. If there is no list, then you won't. So if you are going to employ simple random sampling, the first thing is to generate the list or get the list where possible, maybe in school, maybe in government, maybe you have to, on your own, compile the list. So that is usually the most challenging part of random sampling. The other part is in linguistic studies, it may not be practicable. I don't know if anybody would like to, if you are studying, if you are like the one we talk about, you are studying dialect, phonetic variation, and so on like that. And you are interested in how different groups in Yoruba speak, how they pronounce S. Will you be able to list all the Ogbomoshos? Will you be able to list all the Oyos? Will you be able to list all the Ekitis? Will you be able to list all the Jeshas? So there are situations where it is practically impossible to apply the random sampling approach. But it doesn't mean that you cannot overcome those challenges. If there are questions, except to stop me, I will just continue. Now, stratified sampling, which I've talked about, you use it when the population is heterogeneous. So try to know that. In other words, if the population is made up of different ethnic groups, Ibadan is Lagos and so on, unlike a village where the entire village members will be speaking the same dialect, so there is no variation. You can employ simple random sampling there. But when you have a metropolis like this, where you have Hausa community, Igbo community, Yoruba, the indigenous, the real, those settlers and so on like that. So you might have to consider stratified sampling. So, and divide the population. So if this is the population, then you might need to divide the population based on the the group. So this Each group is called stratum. And you have in this case, maybe this is a stratum, this is another, this is another, this is another, this is another. So you have 5 strata. And then you have to select from this group, you 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 select from this group. You can select equal number from each group. That is equal allocation. You can also select in a way that is proportional to the size of each group. So if group 1 has more members than group 2, then the sample will be more. So you select more from group 1 than group 2. That is selection proportional to size. Example of where you can apply stratified sampling is if you are selecting speakers from urban and rural dialects, then you might have to stratify, according to urban or rural. Now let's go back to our example here. So if I apply stratified, then I will need to load this package called dplyr and then perform the stratified sampling and ensure that I select equal number of speakers from each dialect. So I need 5 from each dialect. So I use this command. So it's going to group them and select 5 from each group. So I run. Then I can see those that have been selected. These are the 20 selected. We can see whether the groups are fairly represented. If I run this line, you can see those East dialect 5, North dialect 5, South dialect 5, West dialect 5. So the dialects are equally represented, unlike what simple random sample did by giving more preference to a particular dialect. So what are the advantages of stratified sampling? One quick benefit is the fact that it ensures diverse representation. So the groups in the population are represented and they are useful for studies involving when you are particularly investigating language variation. So, but there are challenges, just like the random sampling. Before you can apply the stratified sampling, is you probably must have foreknowledge or prior knowledge about the population structure. So you must know the groups that make up the population. Or you have to investigate whether there are groups. Even in churches, in mosques, in communities, there are also groups. That's why you have clans, you have agboles, and so on and so forth. So if you are selecting and there are distance group, you need to ask, you must know those groups that make up the population. Another challenge is the complexity introduced, as you have seen. Why simple random is, straightforward. In stratified sampling, you need to take one or two more steps to identify groups, break the population into groups, and then sample within the groups. The third sampling technique we are considering is the convenience sampling. And I told you, most people use this, but it's not generalized. The result cannot be generalized. People use this because the participants are easily accessible, or they make themselves available. So they are easily accessible, they are reachable, and they are also willing to participate. So that is the inconvenience sampling. It is done to the convenience of the researcher, which is not a good thing. So, for instance, if you are studying or you are recording classmates or friends for a speech study, you are using convenience sampling. When you are doing a speech study and you decided to use classmates or use your own friends for the study, that's convenient. Or not even just your classmate or friends, maybe your religious group, those that you share with the same faith with. So there's a question here from what's your question, Udo? Is it that you can't talk? I can't see the question because of the fact that I'm sharing the screen. So, convenient sampling has advantages. And the most attractive reason is because you can get your data quickly and so cheaply. So it's easy. and it's fast. And again, there's no problem if you are carrying out pilot studies. Pilot studies are usually done before the main study. They are done prior to the main study. And a pilot study, you simply want to look at how people will respond in the main study, and you want to prepare for that or use that to improve your questionnaire. So it's just to have idea of the what will likely happen in the main study. So you can employ convenience sampling, but it's only useful for pilot studies. So there are challenges. One is that the risk of bias is high in convenience sampling than any other sampling method. And the results certainly may not be generalizable. You may also discover situations where some groups are overrepresented. If we also perform the same thing in this example, let's say I employ stratified sampling and I want to select, I can say, okay, instead of, let me just draw the first 10. Since I want 10, let me just draw the first 10. Or since I want 20, let me just draw the first 20. No. So that's convenient sample, and it will just give me the first 20. These are the first 20. These are the first 20. But does it give them equal? No. No. So the West gets more and the North gets least. So these are the challenges. Okay, I see Udo asking, can we say that stratified sampling is a form of random sampling that is probabilistic? Yes, now. Stratified sampling is probabilistic, it's random. So even in stratified sampling, you also employ random sampling, because when you break the population into groups, let's say 2 groups, then maybe in this group you have 10, maybe in this group you have 5, that's 25, and you only need to select 6. So since you want 6, you can now decide to say, okay, I want 3 here, you want 3 in this group, and you want 3 in this group. You will now need to employ simple random sampling to draw the 3 you need here. Again, you will employ simple random sampling to draw the 3. sampling, you still employ simple random sampling. So you are right, Tudor. Then the other question is about convenience sampling. It sounds like it's a non-probabilistic sampling. Yes, your assumption is right, and that's what we've emphasized. It's non-probabilistic. It doesn't give everybody equal chance. Look at the one I just demonstrated. I just decided to use the first 20 out of 100. So which means all those from 21 to 100 have been cut off from being considered for this sample. So that is the, and can I now use this 20 to generalize, the 100? No. So that is those are the challenges around convenience sampling. Now we have a quick comparison as to when is it best to use them and what are their limitations. We've talked about some of this. For simple random sampling, I've told you it is best when you have a population that is homogeneous. And when the population is available, and you can list them out. So in other words, you can get the sampling frame that is complete and up to date. So it requires full population list for you to apply the random sampling method. So you can apply it in general linguistic studies. That's the best time. But for stratified, when you are dealing with studies of linguistic variation, we mentioned that, then you need to apply stratified sampling. The limitation is that even when you are doing your linguistic variation study, the population dynamics must be known. You must have the knowledge about the groups, the subgroups that make up the population. For convenience sampling, use it only when you are doing quick exploratory studies. It's not the main study, but you just want to have a quick idea of of what will likely come up in the main study. Not that you use convenience sampling for the main study, but you could use it as a pilot or a pre study, a study before the main study. But the limitation is that it's not generalizable and it has a high risk of bias. So I don't know if you will be willing to discuss this. Suppose you are conducting a study on code switching. Code switching. I don't know if you know anything about code switching. Is there anybody in the class who know? Code switching. Is there anyone? Code switching. Yes.
Yeah, code switching is when you switch from one language to another. For example, now if I'm speaking, I'm talking to someone, like I'm speaking in English, then I switch to Yoruba language. It's called code
Good.
switching.
How many of you have participated in maybe international meetings? If you have participated in international meetings, at the meeting, maybe some people can only hear French, they can't hear English. So they give them the headphone, and then you have the switch box, and then you turn to the channel. So you switch from one, when someone is speaking English and is French, you understand, then you switch to French so that you listen to the interpreter. That's code switching. Which sampling method will you use for a study on code switching? Who is going to contribute, or I should continue? I should leave that to you. Which sampling method will you use for a study on code switching? Nobody is okay. I will leave it to you. So, how do we conduct linguistic? Yes, Ghanaian, you want to force me to go back. Anybody can speak, just unmute and speak. Let me hear. Okay, let's continue.
So I'm thinking probably strategic sampling based on the group of people that are speaking a particular language.
Make yourself a bit, make it clear so that we can really.
Okay. Since strategic sampling would divide the speakers, for example, now into different groups. So based on the various speakers that have to speak, you have to get your data from different speakers in different groups of languages. So I was thinking strategic sampling, sir.
Say it very well.
Strategic sampling method, sir.
Stratified.
So it's stratified,
Yes.
Stratified sampling method.
Let's clap for Favor EJC. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. You're correct, sir.
They won't clap for you now. It's only clapping for you.
Thank you, sir.
Finally, who don't manage to clap? So you are right. So we are dealing with groups in the audience, and so you have group of different speakers, and the appropriate one is to use stratified sampling. Who is raising up hand?
Hi, sir.
Yes.
Okay,
Eh?
the question.
Eh?
I will to the question, sir.
You want to add to the question?
No. Yes, like what I'm trying to do is, I got the question. I think stratified sampling method is more preferable to use because it ensures the representation of across different social and linguistic groups. In terms of age, you have to select linguistic variations like their age. think stratified testing is not preferable to use to determine the code switching method.
Yeah, so you agree with us, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so let's clap for Adedeji. Let's clap. He wants a clap. Let's give him a good clap. That's good. So let's quickly move to how do we design linguistic experiment and surveys? Most of us, when we are doing our project or research, you will need to conduct linguistic experiments. Experiment might be that you have different groups and you are asking them pronounce this, and you see the way they pronounce and measure some things about them. I don't know much of what to do there. So that could be a form of experiment. In surveys, you can design a questionnaire. You ask people to respond, what language they speak, what tribes are they, things like that. So that is survey, which the respondent will have to provide the answers. But in experiment, you control the experiment. You choose what you want them to do or what you want them to say in experiment. So the experimenter is in control. But in survey, the respondent chooses what to report, what to know, how to respond. This is how I want to respond. So this is the information I want to share. So that's the difference between the experiment and surveys. And I think you do a lot of that. In the experiment, it could be about voice, it could be about the tone or the dialect, it could be about whatever, I don't know much of the, could be about the pronunciation and so on. So anytime you are designing your experiment, you must take into consideration, one, what is the research question? Unfortunately, most people would not start by asking this, by even indicating their research question. So your research or your experiment or your survey must start with what question are you trying to find answer to? And that's the essence of research, is to be able to say clearly so that at the end of the research, you are able to say, this is my answer to the question I pose. So example is this question: do bilinguals process words differently than monolinguals? That is, those who speak two languages, do they process words differently from those who speak only one language? Let's even say those of us who can speak English and our mother tongue. Is it the same way we process English that we process our mother tongue? So that could be a research question. So it's always the starting point. And once you pose the question, the next thing is to ask, who are the population, target population in this study? If I'm studying bilingual words processing among the bilinguals and monolinguals? Which population am I targeting? Is it population of lecturers in UI? Is it population of students in UI? Is it population of Agbowo community? So you need to be specific as to what the population you are targeting is. And of course, it is from that population that you select your sample. So selecting monolingual versus bilingual speakers from the population. So you now need to in that population, anyone who speaks monolingual, anyone who speaks bilingual will be in your population. Then the next thing, having identified the population, is to decide what method are you going to use to collect your sample. Are you going to use survey? Are you going to perform experiments? If you are going to use survey, then it means you will need to collect self-reported behavior or linguistic behavior. If you are going to use experiments, then you have to do something like a laboratory and measure reaction time, pronunciation, as and other things you want to monitor. So you'll be in control in the experiment. And then you can now measure, what you want to measure among them, why they speak. So, and if you are dealing with survey or you are dealing with experimental studies, your data can take different, you can employ different methods for collecting your data. If it's survey, then you might need a structured questionnaire. So a structured questionnaire, for instance, we have pre-specified list of questions and possibly options for the respondents to choose from. So the structured questionnaire, we specify precisely the information you require from your respondents. So it could cover language attitudes, usage, proficiency, and so on. So you have an example if you are investigating language preference in multilingual speakers. So you can have a structured questionnaire. So the advantage of surveys include that you can easily distribute the questionnaires to those you want or that you have selected as your sample, and then you can easily analyze. Then the cons, limitations are that individuals who are responding might be biased or might not be providing accurate information. So they can hide information, they can manipulate information. Even if they don't manipulate, they can forget some things. Or, most of us, we can also pretend. So a lot of things can influence the quality of the responses provided by your respondents. In the experimental studies, as I said earlier, you have a control setting, which might be that you put them in a room and you monitor their speech perception, the reaction time, or this syntactic processing and all of that. So the participants are controlled. They are under your control, and you are able to manipulate them. So, example, if you are measuring response time in a lexical decision task, the pros include that you can be able to, in the control experiment or in experimental study, it's easy to establish what we call causal relationship. Causal relationship is if you have X, you have Y, and you can show that X is causing Y, and maybe Y is also causing X. Here we talk of causal relationship, one causing the other, and vice versa. You could also have YX such that X is causing Y, but Y does not cause X in return. So you could also have, but there's no causality here. So you could also have this, this should be. So you could also have a situation where it is Y that is causing X, but X does not cause Y. And you could also have a situation where none is causing the other. X is not causing Y, Y is not causing the X. So they even don't have anything in common. In control experiment, you can establish this type of causality, and even this, and even this. So you can, that's a major benefit of experimental study, which is difficult to establish in survey. You can't use survey to say that this is A is causing this, B is causing Y, or Y is causing this. You can establish relationship. Maybe there is relationship. Fine. You can establish. This talks about relationship or no relationship. This talks about causality. So you won't be able to establish causality with survey. But with experiment, you can establish causality. So it requires extra effort because you need to carefully control your variables to be able to get good make good sense out of your analysis. There are ethical considerations when it comes to data collection, particularly for linguistic research. Linguistic research, remember, is human-centered. Humans have to participate, and there are ethical issues when it comes to human. You have to be sensitive. So there must be respect for participants. You must be transparent in your data collection. You must tell them why you are doing what you are doing. Then their information, particularly sensitive information, must be well protected. So you don't expose whatever secret they offer to give you when you are collecting the data. You can be sued. So always ensure ethical standard. Ensure that the data they provide are anonymized. You make them anonymous such that it will be impossible for anybody to know who provide the data. So any personal information must be removed, or must be you must remove that completely from your analysis. I'm sure also you don't want your personal information to be exposed. So respect for participants, no matter, even if they are, as long as they are human, children, women, wherever they are, weak, strong, even lunatic, mad people, you must, if they are this thing, you must give them maximum respect. If they report you, it can be very dangerous. In most cases, if you are doing this, you must get what we call ethical approval. Ethical approval. In UI, you have to apply for that, and you get approval to go on, because they will ask you what we call protocol. What are the information you want? How will you ask the question? So these are things they will ask, and be sure that those who will be providing you information will be protected. So there are ethical guidelines for linguistic research, and you must take note. Informed consent, which means participants must voluntarily agree to participate. You can't compel people to participate. That willingness must ensure. So you must ask for their consent. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Ganiyat Afolabi. I'm conducting a research on so. The objective is so. And you have been selected to participate in this interview. I want to kindly seek your consent. So you go that way, and you can say, if he says yes, okay, but give me time then, or when can we, So, or when you two can ask when is it convenient for us to meet? So that's how you get informed consent. The purpose, the procedure, and the danger they are likely to put themselves if they offer the information you are requesting for. Maybe you are asking the wife about the husband. Then the wife must know the risk that if he says anything, it's likely to lead to divorce. So you must let the participant know the risk. Then confidentiality. I've talked about that. Personal information should be protected. You can use anonymous coding to protect sensitive data, to hide sensitive data. Then avoiding harm, which means don't conduct linguistic research that will lead to health burden, maybe psychological, social, or professional burden on the participants. So, you must avoid that. Avoid stigmatizing language in social linguistic study. Then you must ensure data integrity. Don't manipulate data. Don't change yes to no, no to yes. You must report accurate findings. Don't misrepresent your informant or your respondent. Know that plagiarism is a sin on earth and maybe in heaven too, particularly in the academic. You steal data is plagiarism. You steal somebody's work without proper acknowledgement or giving proper recognition is plagiarism. Fabricating data is unethical. You sit down, conjure data, that is unethical. Whether you are doing survey or you are doing experimental, is evil. So ensure that your data passes integrity tests. So we are gradually coming to the end of the lecture, but I have a case study here, ethical dilemma in linguistics. And here is a scenario. A researcher records bilingual speakers in a private conversation without their knowledge. A researcher records bilingual speakers in a private conversation without their knowledge. What ethical principles are violated? You should be able to answer that. How should the researcher have obtained consent in this instance? How could this impact the validity of the study? So your group will discuss that, and then what will you do in this situation? So everybody will have to come up with his own way of handling this situation. So in summary for today's class, we've talked about sampling method, random, stratified, convenience, and how they impact on the validity of linguistic studies. We've talked about experiments and surveys. What we mean by experiment, what we mean by surveys, and the type of data and how we collect data in the two cases. And we just discuss ethical considerations needed or critical for protecting participants and maintaining your research integrity. So in the next class, we are going to move to hypothesis testing in linguistics research. I think there are a few more things. You have a worksheet. I put that in the classroom, so make sure you read and work on it. You have section 1, identifying sampling methods. Section 2, evaluating sampling bias. Section 3, ethical consideration in linguistic research. 4, case study, critiquing a linguistic study, and provide answers to all of this. So this is your submission guideline, and make sure you submit on the Google Classroom by the due date. The due date is next week, end of exactly the last day of the month of February. I think fasting is starting. Ghanaian, when is fasting starting? Starting. Who is Ghanaian? She's no longer in the class.
So I think February 20th or March 1st, sir.
Okay, so anyway, the energy will still be there to submit on 28th. But if it's first, then you don't need to worry about energy. So this is the end of our discussion today. Any question, comment? Yes. Any question, comment? Udo?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, I want to make inquiries about the nature of our examination, how it's going to be, if it's going to be practical, or it's going to be theory and objective or subjective, and so I'll be able to know how to prepare ahead of time. I mean, I'm talking about both this course and for machine learning, how the examinations will come. If we are doing both practical and theory, or we are doing only objectives, like multiple choice question. Thank you very much, sir.
What do you suggest? Tell me how you want my questions to be. Udo, what kind of question do you want?
Okay. So I think multiple choice will be okay, sir. Like A, B, C. You just choose from the multiple choice, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
That is even, you may even say you don't want questions. So that as we are doing now, I can just say, Udo, you scored 99 over 100. Will you like that, isn't it? Maybe that's the way we should do it. Adedeji, yes. Is it the same question or?
No, sir. Now my question is on the sampling method. Yes,
Yeah,
talk about the stratified sampling that it is used when population is divided into subgroups,
yeah,
whereby participants are selected proportionally from each group. And
yeah.
we talk about the advantages that it is useful for studying language variation. Now, my question is, what about in cases whereby we have population structure that is unclear? How can we researchers effectively define and divide strata for stratified sampling? That's my first question. Then number two question is that what strategies can be used to balance participant selection when some strata like people living in rural speakers are harder to access than others?
Okay. If I understand you very well, the issue is that if you don't know the population structure, you will need to investigate, and it's not also advisable for you to deal with a population you don't have information about. It's just like you uh, trying to study uh, people in Ghana while you are here. You don't know, you have no idea about the population dynamics, but you just want Ghana, and you are not visiting the place. So if you are a concerted, very painstaking researcher, you have to understand the population, and you don't assume, you don't make any assumption. You need to painstakingly understand the population structure by asking, by reading, by getting all your facts before you decide whether simple random sampling is appropriate or whether stratified sampling is appropriate, or if you want to generalize, then you cannot use the convenient sampling. So that's what I would say. Don't try to avoid the process by making assumption. It will make your findings generalizable. That's the challenge there. And
Yes, sir.
if you are passionate about you making your findings generalizable, then you need to have a first-hand, a detailed understanding of the population structure.
Yes, sir.
What's the second? I think that answers the two.
Yeah, this, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Cassava.
Right.
Yes, sir. I have comments, sir.
Yeah.
Concerning the sampling method, I believe for linguistic, it is best to have stratified sampling, because there was a time we went for a field work and we have to get most of our reliable data from the elder people of a particular language. It turns out that the younger generation of the people, they no longer speak that language. It's just the older ones that are speaking the language, and then they still understand the language very well. So we have to base our sampling based on the older ones or the chief or the other ones in that community. So I believe for linguistics, it is more preferable to use stratified sampling for us to get our real data.
Yes, and if what you said is true, then you have violated the process. You don't get to defeat before you select those that will participate. When you design your study, which I showed in my slides, you have to start in the office before you even go to the field. What question is this research aiming at providing answers to? Then you define the population. Who are you targeting? When you know the population, then what information do you have about the population? Where are they? Who is living where and where? So if you are going to use simple random sampling, you will now need to get the list and select those that will participate before you even go to the field. If you don't have the list, you have to compile the list yourself. If you can get the list from ministry or from many agencies, that will be good for you, or from the KBAC or from the elders of the community. If you can get the list, that will be good for you. So you work with the list and know and pre-select participants before you go to the field. So when you are going to the field, you already know who to visit, who should respond, who should not respond, who is not supposed to be part of the survey. So that's how studies that are of high standard. It's not when you get to the field, you know, àwọn èèyàn ti kú lápá bí o, and then àwọn tó sì wà life no, or the language. Before you do all of that, that information you will have gotten the information, and use that in developing your study design. You will know how many samples you will select. We will still discuss some of these things later. Is that okay, Cassava?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Udo is not going to take no for answer. He said I've not answered his question. He wants me to tell him how my question will look like. I don't know if other teachers have told you how the questions will look like. Is the way questions are asked in your undergraduate? That's the same way. Udo. So you have lecture notes, you have the video, you have to know everything that I've taught you. So if you see objective, it's for you to do that. If you don't see objective and you see essay, then you have to do it. If you see calculation, you have to do it. Udo. Or is there something that...
Yes,
you
sir. I wanted to know because I know some departments actually do take home examinations. So I want to know if that would be the case with us when it comes to machine learning and big courses like this. I mean, big courses like this. Thank you, sir.
You are supposed to, your exam, the result will, you have continuous assessment, and you will also have the exam. You have to do written exam in the university. No course is entirely, in UI, maybe outside is possible, but in UI, there must be a written exam. Exam is, I think, 70 or 60 for, maybe 60 for postgraduate, 30 for CA. So you have to do written, but it's even too early to get worried. It is the knowledge that you should be concerned about, not the exam. And we've even started the CA. Those of you who are participating, you know this thing is recording your participation. So those who are not participating, you are getting 0 already. So for CA anyway. Ghanaian, sir, what if we get to the field to find something else applicable? How will you get something else? I've told you before you go, you have to design your study first based on the information about the population. And before you go to the field, you must even know those you are going to meet on the field that will provide you the answer. So how will you be getting something else? What do? We plan to ask young people, but elderly people have the knowledge. That means you didn't do the homework. You didn't know about the population structure before you go there. So it's not when you go there you will be getting this secondary information. So part of your preliminary, activities will be to get information that will help you to design your study appropriately. It's not when you might go to the place not to go and collect information first, and not to go and implement your survey instrument, but to understand the environment and know the population structure before you go back to the office and say, okay, where we are going, this is the way things are, then how should we implement? Because if you do that, if you are now going there, then you will be employing convenience sampling. That's what you end up resorting to. You wanted to interview young people, but you ended up with interview. That's convenience sampling. Is it that all the young people in the village have died? So that's why you are learning this thing. Is that okay, Ghanaian?
Yes, sir.
Are you satisfied with that? Anyway, any other question? Peter, Honey, have you been discussing about tutorial?
Brother, thank you, Prof. So today, I think it must be Udo that called me, and he wanted us to have tutorials. So I told him that tomorrow at 11 we'll have one. So on machine learning, that's what we agreed. So I don't know if he has told his colleagues. Udo.
Is it physical or anyway? You feel go ahead.
Feel free. They said they wanted physical. They said they wanted physical, and I told them 11 o'clock tomorrow will be fine. But Udo, how far?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Actually, the physical class is what we are actually interested in, but I don't really know about the time. Our course rep will really speak about that, sir.
Is your course rep here? Hello, Udo. Udo, find out and let us know so that we don't delay this prof.
They will get to you if they are serious about it.
Okay, Prof.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. See you again next week. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.